Should you pull for Cissnei's FR and BT? I'm only doing one unit this time. Thank God, it's not a lot to edit. Her roles are going to be a ranged and linked attacker. That's it. That's all she does. Her attacks. Blade Glint, her skill 1, deals 8 HP attacks, granting 1 level of Wild Rekka for 6 turns. Threatening Ember, her skill 2, deals 6 HP attacks with 150% splash, granting 2 levels of Wild Rekka for 6 turns. Fortune Star, her EX, deals 7 split HP attacks, granting 2 levels of Wild Rekka for 6 turns, and granting the buff Fortune Star for 8 turns. Shooting Star, her LD, giving 1 free ability use, granting 3 levels of Wild Rekka for 6 turns, and granting like a Shooting Star for 1 turn. You might be wondering, what the hell is Wild Rekka and why are all the moves giving it? Well, it's because it gives access to her linked attack, which is called Besiege. It will trigger after every single party attack, dealing 1 split HP attack per level of it, so the max amount of split HP attacks you'll be doing will be 3. After every single time it triggers, it will reduce by 1 level, but it will not go below level 1. Besiege also increases Brave by 20% of the HP damage dealt. Ooh, I also forgot to mention, you can upgrade her Wild Rekka level with her C65. Serial Crosses, her FR, big surprise, it grants 2 levels of active Wild Rekka. Now, let's get to what her BT does. Cloud Steam Dragon, her BT, lasts for 6 turns, granting a party HP cap up of 20%, but the reason why her BT is so good, it's because it will trigger Cissnei's follow-up attack twice instead of 1. So at the max level, instead of dealing 3 split HP attacks, you are now dealing 6 because it triggers twice. Furthermore, while this BT is active, you don't have to worry about Wild Rekka ever going below level 3. Cissnei's buffs, yeah, just buffs. Wild Rekka, her overhead will give her a max Brave up by 20%. Fortune Star will give her party max rate up by 100% and a party max Brave up by 20%. Like a Shooting Star, this is the buff from her LD. It will make it so Wild Rekka levels will not decrease. Cissnei's Force Conditions, you get a 5% whenever you're using a ranged ability, including off-turn damage, a 5% when Cissnei uses a ranged ability, including off-turn, basically whenever her follow-up triggers, and you get a final 40% when you're dealing critical Brave damage. Is Cissnei's BT necessary? Yes, 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 and a yes. It allows Cissnei's follow-up to trigger twice, giving a linked attack of 6 total split HP attacks whenever anyone in the party attacks, as well as giving her the freedom to do other moves besides her LD while maintaining her max overhead. Without her BT, you'll still be able to deal 3 split HP attacks, but those will require you to spam the LDs to upkeep. Should you pull for Cissnei? She does one thing and one thing well: follow-up attacks. Her linked attack is one of the strongest in the entire game. Most linked attacks only end up doing single target, and even if it's single target, it does 2, 3, maybe even 4 follow-up attacks. Cissnei does 6, and it's AoE after all of your allies attack. What? Keep in mind, her BT only lasts for 6 turns. You're only going to have a certain period of time where you're going to enjoy her broken follow-ups, but they are broken regardless. If you have turn hoggers with you, if you have people who take up a lot of turns by themselves, Cissnei is greatly going to raise their overall damage. And don't be surprised when bosses are out here getting Thanos turning to dust after a handful of interactions from your party, because it's a lot of off-turn damage that she gives you. Cissnei already, without her BT or FR, was an amazing unit. Just having 3 split HP attacks following up every single attack your party does, it was very good back then. Having that double, not having to worry about spamming her LD to upkeep the buff, that's why I say that her BT is absolutely necessary. You want that broken damage. And lastly, with her 100% crit rate up, I think it's cool. She can basically guarantee herself 40%. It's not 100% party crit rate up. I would have liked it if it was, but Cissnei's really not supposed to be your support unit anyway. She really only has one role, is to follow up attack. For better and for worse. Here are the downsides that I've found with Cissnei. She needs a lot of help to get max damage. She inherently has low attack, so you're gonna need to bring pretty beefy supports in order for her to deal her max damage. She cannot do it by herself. Even with an ultimate weapon, it's not a complete gimme that you're going to be dealing at the max. You need some support units. Similar to someone like Astos, she can't do all the work by herself. You need proper support. You need backup in order for her to fully utilize her brokenness. This, I would say, is very easily her biggest con. Her FR, in my opinion, is she viable as a main FR? Only if you have no other option in your party. Apart from that, I would definitely look elsewhere and just use her as an FR Echo. I don't think her conditions are very easy. 5% per off-turn attack sounds pretty simple on paper until you realize that it actually requires a ranged ability. If you want to use Cissnei's FR as a main, that kind of gatekeeps teaming her up with some other units like Ace, Weiss. Her FR doesn't really work with those types of units. You need ranged off-turn damage. Someone like Kane would work, Noctis would work with his follow-up. Who else? I think Laguna's Desperado debuff triggers this. If you don't have those units, yeah, you're not going to be getting as high of force times as you are with more generic units. And lastly, despite her having one of the most OP linked attacks in the game, the fact that she's a throwing star class is a bit tough on the DPS side because not a lot of people have throwing star Ultima weapon. You know, for this month, I've already dismantled my Ultima weapon and built my fist for Ida. If I do decide to build Cissnei, I'm not going to be able to have an Ultima weapon for her. Cissnei without an Ultima weapon, trying to get her to cap damage, that's a tough task. If you have the throwing star, more power to you, but for those of us who don't, perhaps look for other off-turn attackers that do have your Ultima weapon, rather than building a whole new unit like Cissnei, just because people said she was broken. She is broken, but she does have her weaknesses. You gotta account for that. If I'm gonna build her, it's gonna be without an Ultima weapon, and that's kind of tough. I was actually considering, instead of getting Cissnei, tokening Kadaj's BT instead. Kadaj has my Ultima weapon, and he, like Cissnei, has a very good linked attack. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Cissnei. Are you gonna pull for her? Are you gonna skip? Thank you guys so much for watching with me. I'll see you on the next video. Bye!